Hello, this is Newsfeed. A worsening crisis in Gaza, where the biggest and second biggest hospitals, Al-Shifa and Al-Quds, have shut their doors to patients amid Israel's relentless airstrikes. Israeli bombings and intense fighting have left medical staff grappling with a dire shortage of oxygen, medical supplies, and fuel to power life-saving equipment. Israel claims hospitals in Gaza are built above Hamas command centers. However, Hamas denies using hospitals as cover. Meanwhile, medical staff and Palestinian officials say that the evacuation of patients could be perilous, citing Israel's intense bombardment and heavy fighting around hospitals. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says Al-Shifa Hospital, once the most extensive hospital complex in Gaza, is no longer recognizable and isn't functioning as a hospital anymore. The facility has been without electricity and water for 3 days. Dr. Tedros called for a ceasefire now. Israel claims to have deposited 300 liters of fuel near Al-Shifa intended to power an emergency generator for incubators for premature babies. But Gaza's health ministry spokesperson Ashraf Al-Qidra says the provided fuel falls woefully short and wouldn't sustain the generator for even a single hour.
Premature infants lying on the ground, without oxygen, without machines, without electricity, without mothers, and doctors unable to offer them anything. They await death in Al-Shifa Medical Complex that is besieged by the occupation that targets anything that moves.
Despite being declared out of service, many doctors have refused to abandon their patients. The only nephrologist or kidney doctor at Al-Shifa Hospital, Dr. Hammam Alou, was one of them. He was killed along with his family in an Israeli airstrike. This clip from what would tragically become Dr. Alou's final interview, where he was asked why he didn't flee to the south, went viral on social media.
And if I go, who treats my patients? They are not animals. They have the right to receive proper health care. You think I went to medical school and for my postgraduate degrees for a total of 14 years, so I think only about my life and not my patients?
While real doctors scramble to save lives with limited resources, sacrificing themselves in the process, a disturbing contrast has emerged. Enter a viral video featuring what is clearly a fake nurse, presumably for Israeli propaganda purposes.
Ya Allah, I can't believe I'm doing this, but the world has to know what Hamas is making here. They're taking over the entire hospital. They're taking over the fuel, the medicine. Leave, run away, don't stay here, please. يا عالم يا ناس اطلعوا من هون اطلعوا من الشفاء.
However, social media users across the world were quick to call out the theatrics. Several doctors and nurses from Al-Shifa Hospital said she never worked there before and they had never seen her at the hospital. Users have also pointed out her Israeli accent, unusual choice of words when speaking Arabic, and fake bombing sounds in the background, among other giveaway details like her clean clothes and makeup. As the world's attention is fixated on Gaza, attacks by Israeli settlers on Palestinians in the West Bank are surging. The visuals you are seeing are of Israeli settlers disrupting and ransacking a Palestinian olive-picking season. Palestinian farmer Bilal Saleh was killed in one such attack in October. Reports of clashes occur regularly, but observers are not concerned that settlers backed by the Israeli state are using the attack in Gaza as cover to increase their abuse and intimidation of Palestinians. These visuals are from Yesh Din, an Israeli human rights group that's documenting abuse in the occupied West Bank. The group alleges that the men you see harassing villages in southern Hebron are actually settlers dressed as soldiers.
Now they're a bit more emboldened by the fact that there's a war, and their violence is much more considerable and much more lethal because people have guns, as opposed to just throwing rocks or, having fights in the streets. Israelis have also put more or less a restriction on movement within the West Bank, which means that people can't go village to village. They have to be more or less locked down into their city. And that's a huge problem for us in the UN in terms of delivery of services, movement of our personnel, people being intimidated, and people being driven from their homes by settlers, but also the simple fact that people aren't moving from town to town means that there will be a real economic downturn in the West Bank.
We've seen Palestinians in Gaza flee their homes since the Israeli bombs started dropping on October the 7th. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli settlers are driving people out of villages they have lived in their whole lives. Take the residents of Kirbet Zanuta in southern Hebron. Up until early November, there were a community of 27 families and about 250 people. Now the entire village has moved.
أصعب أيام شفناها لما أجانا المستوطن هذا وصار سكن على الجنب. بعد الحرب ما بدت ب3 أيام ما خلناش ننام ولا ليلة. كل يوم يجينا ويجي مع الجيش كمان. يجي في النهار يضرب وضربنا وضرب أولادنا أكثر من مرة. بقول لك أجانا قبل 4 أيام كسروا القزاز وكسروا الكبوا تنكات المي تبعاتنا وراجموا علينا حجار دوج.
وقالوا ايش؟
روحوا ارحلوا من هنا، ما ظلوا الشارع، ما ظل الشارع، يلا روح من هنا. بس.
The issue of settlements and the Israelis who live there is a point of contention. In contrast to Palestinian parts of the West Bank, special road networks are built exclusively for settlers, and resources such as water are often diverted from Palestine to serve settlements. In the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, there are 262 settlements, 10 in East Jerusalem and 252 in the West Bank. The areas in red are settlements. A total of 690,000 Jews live in settlements. A third of them reside in East Jerusalem. Settlements cover 13% of the West Bank.
4.5 million Palestinians live under occupation with no rights at all, victims of dehumanization, arbitrary checkpoints, settler violence, brutalization by security forces, a military court system, and no vote.
French President Emmanuel Macron has noted that in the first days of the conflict, everyone was sympathetic towards Israel. Now he's calling for a ceasefire, which Israel is strongly resisting. Macron is among many of Israel's allies reconfiguring their full support. Even the U.S. Secretary of State has changed his message.
Far too many Palestinians have been killed. Far too many have suffered these past weeks. And we want to do everything possible to prevent harm to them and to maximize the assistance that gets to them.
This reaction and the fight against terrorism, because it is led by a democracy, should be compliant with international rules, rule of war and humanitarian international law. And day after day, what we saw is a permanent bombing of civilians in Gaza.
Recently, China has been taking a greater interest in Middle East geopolitics. It played a significant role in the easing of strained relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And it's been intriguing to see China's response to the current crisis. China has been a long-standing supporter of the Palestinians dating back to the era of Chairman Mao. Back in June, Beijing offered to mediate between the rival Palestinian factions and Israel. Beijing's initial reaction to October the 7th was typically muted, but its failure to criticize Hamas emboldened Chinese influencers, and anti-Semitic rhetoric became more widespread. A week later, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken took a call with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi. They discussed stability in the region and discouraged other parties from entering the conflict. 3 days later, Chinese President Xi Jinping called for a ceasefire as soon as possible to avoid the conflict from expanding or even spiraling out of control and causing a serious humanitarian crisis. October 19th, and Xi was hosting the Belt and Road Forum in Beijing. In a meeting with the Egyptian Prime Minister, he reiterated his call for a ceasefire and demanded humanitarian corridors for Gaza. China has always dismissed damning reports of its treatment of Muslims in an apparent slight against Israel's attacks on Palestinians, whilst defending its own treatment of the Uyghurs. Beijing's embassy in France posted these two images. Note how the Uyghur buildings are beautifully intact. And since the beginning of the month, China has become chair of the UN Security Council. It was one of 120 nations to vote for a ceasefire and has sent a special envoy to the region. But has China's support for Palestinians caused it to wipe Israel off the map? Well, there was quite a kerfuffle recently that the name Israel no longer appeared on digital maps on Alibaba and Chinese search engine Baidu. On Alibaba's map, international borders remained and major cities were labeled, but the name Israel seemed to have disappeared. Baidu's map also had Israel marked out but not named, even though, as one commentator spotted, small European nations like Luxembourg were named. Beijing may be known for its obtuse diplomacy at times, but it's usually very specific when it comes to maps. China's government has levied fines over online maps that fail to adhere strictly to Beijing's territorial claims. Leaving out a 9-dash dotted line stretching around the South China Sea has led to some hotel websites even getting fined. Anyone who's caught recent exchanges between the Chinese and Israelis at the United Nations will know that the two nations are not best buddies. China has openly sympathized with the Palestinian cause for some time now and called Israel's actions as going beyond the scope of self-defense. The Israeli diplomat said he was deeply disappointed with China, but would China go so far as to wipe Israel off the map? Well, not according to Shanice.
First, let's look up how to say Israel. Okay. Isalia, okay? To Gaza. So this is one map. All right. You can see Israel. I click on it. It has taken me to Israel on the map. Even if I zoom out all the way, you can still clearly see Israel. I guess if I click, let's see if I click somewhere else. Maybe it will stop Israel from showing up. No, it's still there. The map is Baidu. Let's look up Baidu Maps. Okay, here you can see. And I zoom out. Ooh. Sorry, it's being funky, y'all. Okay. Zoom out, zoom out. Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. Okay, and there you can see that it is on the map.
Over 70,000 people gathered in a massive protest in Amsterdam on Sunday for climate justice. Some protesters were also calling for the demonstrations to show solidarity with Palestine, like climate activist Greta Thunberg, who said the climate movement needs to learn from those oppressed, and there could be no justice without international solidarity. She shared her time with Palestinian and Afghan activists. Shortly after their speeches, Thunberg was interrupted on stage.
The people in power have not been listening.
I come here for a climate demonstration, not a political view. This is climate demonstration.
Calm down. No climate justice on occupied land. No climate justice on occupied land.
And Greta and those Dutch protesters are not the only ones showing solidarity with Palestine. We leave you with the images of millions of people from all walks of life marching, calling out leaders for their inaction, and demanding a ceasefire.
We live in cities you'll never see on screen. Not very pretty, but we sure know how to run things. Living in ruins of the past within our dreams. I know we're in Charlie's team.
You don't have to be Palestinian to stand with the Palestinian people.
And that's why we focus on Gaza at this moment, because a genocidal attack is taking place. Yeah!
Tears while you're bursting out with laughter. Freedom for Palestine, freedom for Gaza, freedom for every child, mother and father who are being bombed by the bombs of Obama. I'm bursting out tears while you're bursting out with laughter. Free Palestine and lay down your weapons.